You're listening to Where You Live with Gene Sullivan.
Welcome back to Where You Live. I'm Gene Sullivan, broadcasting from the True North Painting Studios. The show is also brought to you by American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency, and Extreme Exteriors. Before we get into our next story, I'd like to let our listeners know we've got a free gift for you. We put together a bi-monthly newsletter called What's New. A lot of what we will talk about on the show, we discuss and go into further detail in the newsletter. It's yours free for the asking. It's a great resource, and all you need to do is give us a call during the week at New Concepts at 952-922-2500. Ask for Lori, and she'll make sure that you start receiving your copy either electronically or by mail. Now, I mentioned that we're going to talk about a question. This is one that a lot of people will ask. Homeowner associations will say, I'd like to try and save some money with our budget. And every few years you get some new people on the HOA board, and they say, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we pursue this? And then you go through explaining everything all over again. And that is, hey, can't we just give the streets back, these private streets that are our responsibility as an association? Let's give them to the city. They'll plow them, so we don't have to plow them. We won't have to maintain them when new asphalt needs to be put on, when they need to be seal coated. The city does it. We don't, and we'll save a bunch of money. Sounds like a good idea, something to consider, right? Well, that's what was taking place in Smithfield, Pennsylvania, with an association there. Here's the situation. An association was just beginning to be built. The developer originally set up a number of single-family detached homes, but it was an association. So once again, as in our first story, single-family home that you own, not attached to any other property. It is established in a yard and that you own as well, but it's in the association. The association generally will have and maintain private streets. They might have a monument and some signs, some signage, some flowers, maybe an outlot for a tennis court, that kind of thing. And that's what was being built. At this particular juncture, though, only 4 homes had sold. 17 additional lots needed to be sold, and then a custom-built home was going to be put up there. However, in the middle of all this, the developer goes bankrupt. And now all of a sudden the question is coming up, who's going to maintain these roads? Okay? Unfortunately, what had happened in this entire situation was a very loosey-goosey situation where there were a lot of people at fault. Usually you would take a look at, and if you listen to the show regularly, I always say go back to your governing documents. Your governing documents are the written contractual agreement that says what you are going to be responsible for collectively as an association. Unfortunately, in this situation, the developer didn't bother to get the governing documents written and established and attached to the property before he sold it. So people bought homes, single-family homes, and they had no idea that there was going to be an association or what this meant. And now this guy, the developer, who is now bankrupt, had promised the city this will be an association. The association will be responsible for the roads, but no association was ever established. This guy is bankrupt. Nobody's going to be building any more homes. Everything is stopped. People are saying, who's going to be responsible for the roads? 4 homeowners are saying, I think the city ought to. The city says, hey, no one asked us that. This wasn't a part of the deal. And so here is the stalemate. This is the situation that we find ourselves in, okay? So what happens is next, a new developer steps in to take over the responsibility of the defunct former developer. And he's stating there's no association. The roads, therefore, belong to the city. he has a point. There weren't any governing documents. However, there was indeed some sort of agreement that an understanding that the people in the city council and in the community development in this city had, knowing that this was going to be an association. So they had a point. Unfortunately, I think there's probably some blame not only on the developer, but also on the city for not following through and demanding some of the requirements each step of the way in the development of a brand new HOA. The city attorney comes out and get this. This is something that the city attorney says in this situation. He's not sounding very bright in this discussion. He said, how can the city own these roads? He said, there's a lot of questions we have. If there's an accident on the roads and people were severely injured, who would be sued? He said, would it be the bankrupt developer? Really? You, as the city attorney, you really think that if there was a lawsuit, let's say someone did get hurt, and then it was blamed on the people that were responsible for the roads, you think that people would sue the bankrupt developer? Is that what you're saying? And this guy is the lawyer for the city? He said, oh, this is such a mess. And it was a mess. But I can answer that question, and I'm not even an attorney. Who would someone sue if there's an accident? Anybody and everybody that's close to the situation. That's what you can count on. It doesn't matter whether there is true responsibility or not. It's been my experience that if someone is upset and thinks that there is liability, they're going to try and attach it and point fingers to anybody and everybody. But the idea of the city's not going to take back this road simply because they don't want to be sued, it seems ridiculous to me. Cities own a lot of streets and maintain a lot of roads, and there are a lot of accidents on those roads every year. I don't know that there's necessarily, with every single accident, a lawsuit just waiting to happen as well. Okay, but anyway, this was the situation. What is going to take place here? And let's talk about that question. Is it a good idea to be able to say, hey, why don't we just give, let's take this out of the equation. This was a messed up situation that I think the responsibility of the city and developer were not clear and didn't follow through with protocol and procedure in building and putting together this homeowners association. So I think both parties are at fault here. I think both parties are going to have to come together to try and get this resolved. But let's take a look at that question that I asked at the very beginning of the segment. A lot of people will say, hey, if we have a private street, can't we give it to the city? Well, let me tell you that, number one, a city was not going to be wanting any private street that belongs to a homeowners association for a couple reasons. Number one, you'll find that the private streets don't meet the same qualifications that a city street does. A city street has to have so much in width. It has to be able to have a certain type of bituminous rock that needs to be put down so that the tar that's put on there, the asphalt, is at a special thickness and special level, so it'll take a certain thickness of trucks and heavy vehicles to be able to go through. There's a number of things that go through, and the cities don't require that in a homeowners association because it's going to have light traffic. Only cars are going to be basically going through, and it's going to be owned by the association. So the city is not going to want the private streets just because it's not going to meet the qualifications of what a city street should. Number two, you're going to find that it's really not going to cost you any less. For anybody that thinks that, well, if we give our private streets to the city, that means we're going to save money. you're not going to save any money, because I can tell you that any street that goes by any privately owned piece of real estate, those people are taxed. They are taxed by the city where that property resides. And that is for all the improvements that take place. So there is going to be no savings. If you think by turning over a private road, and even if the city were to take it, that it would save you money, no. The city's now going to turn around and is going to assess you, just like the association assesses you, for the maintenance of that road. So the question really is, where do you really want that responsibility to be? Where do you think it's better to have more control in terms of the road and how that gets done and when and what that cost will be, and looking at possible vendors, or turning it over to the city where you have no control? In a homeowners association, if you don't like a particular special assessment, it could be the case where you could say, you know what, we're not going to approve the assessment this year. Let's do it, put it off for next year. That'll be a little bit better for everybody's budget. You don't have that kind of ability if you give it and turn it over to the city. So the idea that you're going to save any money, that's not going to happen. The chance that you're going to have more control over your destiny of how it's going to be taking place, it's going to happen with your HOA rather than with the city. Well, we need to take another break. Don't go away. We've got so much more of Where You Live after these messages.